But the most significant thing is that in the night, God gets done some things that cannot as conveniently get done under the rising sun. I'm not going to preach this. Reverend, I want you to preach this sermon for me when you have time. I think you've already preached it. It is that Joseph in the book of Genesis had long periods of night, because basically, says St. John of the Cross, night is sometimes being up and down, up and down, up and down. And when I preach the story of Joseph, I preach about the history of ups and downs beneath our ups and downs. Do you know what? That boy Joseph had a whole lot of night hours. Oh, you know it, don't you? Hey, help me out. You know when to say up and when to say down. Help me out now. Joseph had a dream that his sheaves of wheat were always standing and everybody else was bowing. But his brothers couldn't stand him, so when he went to check on them, they decided to get him off of his horse and they put him in a pit. No sooner than he was down in the pit, the Ishmaelite traders came along and they took him out of the pit and sold him into Egypt. And while he was in Egypt, you all remember what I used to say about this. He quickly rose high up in the employ of Potiphar. And Mrs. Potiphar looked at him and wanted the brother to get. But the brother said, no, I've got to stand up and live according to God's will in my life. Ended up down in prison. And the king brought him up to the palace. And one day when his brothers were in front of him, he broke and said, listen, boys, y'all meant it for evil, but the Lord was working on the night shift. While y'all were doing your mess, God was at work, and now I'm in a position to be a source of salvation. Well. I want to conclude my sermon saying, Jesus, in the middle of the day, it became night. They put him up on the cross. After a while, they took him down, put him in a stone cold tomb. And on the third day morning, he got, yes, he did. Well, how was that possible? Because God decided for you and for America, I need to show the world that when it is really dark, I can work and turn things around. Late in the midnight hour, I can turn it around. In the night, when everybody else is quiet, I can do an extreme makeover in the operation of life and make your life brand new. And I want to close my sermon the same way I opened it, with words that I have written, lest you miss it. I want to tell you all, people run away from the darkness. But if people would face into the reality of the darkness of this present moment, we could be on the threshold of some better days. So first of all, here is what I would want you to say. I'm reading now. I would wish you to say, it is night, but I'm going to hold out until the morning light. I'm going to put my nothing in the hands of God to see if God can do something with it through the night. In my life and death struggle, I'm going to yield myself to God to see what God can do through the night. That's for you as an individual. To this church, Trinity, and to other churches around the nation. Couldn't you say, what a privilege it is to know God in the fellowship of suffering? We've been through a tough time. But it perhaps may be that this is the only way we can attain to the resurrection. Maybe the reason we've been held up in the night is because while it is night, God can do some retrofitting. Go down and get the foundational values and put them in a strong place and put them deeper into the soil of ultimate reality. And we may be, Trinity, you may be on the threshold of your brightest hour. And how could that possibly be as grand and as glorious as this church has been? You may be just around the corner when God gets through doing this night work. Lord have mercy. Look out, Trinity. Anyway, and now I want to close with this word to America. America, 9/11 ushered in a serious night season. And God wanted in the night to bring America closer to the realization of the American dream of justice, peace, and compassion. But while God was getting ready to do the operation and the restoration of America, a preemptive strike was made on God's night project and was replaced by war. Now, we are in another kind of night season as we go through this electoral campaign. I want to call on all religious leaders of the nation not to let this opportunity pass without putting ourselves in a place of honest acknowledgement about the depth of the night within us and around us. And America, if we are willing to face it, whatever it is inside ourselves that bears the sign of the dark night of the soul, God has promised, if we are willing to face it, to grace it. Whether it's racism, sexism, economism, environmental degradation, whether or not it is one of the pernicious ills of the nation, exceptionalism, like we are accepted as to be so exceptional that whatever wrongs we do not matter. We can get away with whatever we want to do and God will not see it. And imperialism, whatever we need because we are exceptional before God, we can take it. God says, if you would acknowledge these things, God is prepared to offer forgiveness and acceptance, bring about transformation, and give you a new lease on life as a nation. Otherwise, if you stay in the night of denial too long, it could be perilous for us all, not just Americans, but for the world. I know my time is up. Can I testify? I want to testify. Let me say this.